There is a silence that lives at the top of the world. It is not an empty silence. It's a heavy one. It is the sound of 1 billion tons of ice, pressing down on the rock of ages, a weight that holds the planet in place. It is the sound of your own blood, pulsing in your ears, the only warm thing in a world of absolute zero. It is the sound of stars, which seem brighter and colder here, like chips of glass in a black void. In the village of Skardavik, nestled in the deep cradle of the White Veil Mountains, this silence is the only currency that matters. The people here don't just live in it, they are shaped by it. They are quiet, observant, and hard. Their faces are maps of wind, scour, and frost. Their words are few, because in the high places, breath is a precious fuel, not to be wasted on noise. Skardavik is a place of endings. It is the last stop, the final cluster of lights before the endless, vertical wilderness of ice and storm. It is the threshold, and for those who come to challenge the peaks, the Serpent's Tooth, the Widow's Peak, the great, terrifying Fin, it is often the last place they are ever seen alive. But the mountain always gives a reason. A rogue storm that appears from a clear sky, a hidden crevasse, a blue-black wound veiled by a fresh dusting of snow, a simple, fatal slip of the foot, a momentary lapse in a game that demands perfection. The mountain is a killer, but it is an honest one. Until the morning of the 3rd of November, when the silence was broken not by an avalanche, but by a scream. A single, human cry, sharp as an ice pick, quickly muffled by the snow. Her name was Detective Evelyn Cross. She arrived 2 days later, on a prop plane that seemed to fight the wind for every inch of altitude. The tiny, twin-engine craft was a speck of vibrating metal, lost in a cathedral of blinding white and bruised blue shadows. Evelyn watched the peaks pass by, their granite faces indifferent, ancient. She was a woman of the city, a place of right angles, rain, and the predictable noise of humanity. This was a different element. She was here because she was methodical, because she didn't get rattled. And, though her superiors would never say it, she was here because she was expendable. A ghost of her own, she carried the memory of her last case. A girl in a yellow raincoat, a locked basement, a choice she made, to wait for backup, that cost the girl her life. The girl's mother, at the hearing, hadn't screamed or cried. She had just looked at Evelyn with hollow eyes and said, "You were too slow. You were too careful. So they sent her here." A change of scenery was what they called it. A quiet case, in a quiet place. A form of exile. A place to be slow and careful, where it couldn't possibly matter. Evelyn was a woman built of the same stillness she now found herself in. She was patient. She watched. She listened. As the plane's skis scraped onto the packed snow runway, she saw them. The locals. A small cluster of figures by the single hangar, not moving, just watching. They looked less like a welcoming party and more like a jury. The village constable, a man named Brynjar, met her as she stepped down. The cold was a physical blow, a slap that stole her breath. Brynjar was a big man, his face a roadmap of frostbite and worry. He didn't offer a handshake. He just nodded toward a waiting snowcat, its engine rumbling in the thin air. "She's not going to like this, Brynjar," Evelyn said, her voice quiet, pulling her city coat tighter. It was a good coat. It was useless here. "No, ma'am," he replied, his own voice a low rumble, as if it came from the rock beneath his feet. "Nobody likes this. Leo Vance. He wasn't supposed to die down here. He was supposed to die up there." He pointed, and Evelyn's gaze followed. Up, past the village, past the timberline, past the clouds, to the impossible, jagged line of the sky. The fin. A blade of rock and ice that seemed to be holding the heavens up. The victim was Leo the Ghost Vance, a name that echoed in climbing magazines and energy drink commercials. He was the new generation, charismatic, reckless, blessed with an almost supernatural luck. He had soloed K2 in winter. He had survived a night without oxygen at 28,000 feet. They called him the Ghost because he moved where others couldn't, and survived what no one should. He had not survived the night in Skardavik. They hadn't moved him. Brynjar drove the snowcat as far as the trail allowed, and then they walked. The crime scene was a small, sheltered hollow of rocks near the base of the Serpent's Tooth, less than a mile from the village. It was a place climbers called the Threshold, the last stop for meditation before a big ascent. Leo Vance was lying on his back, eyes open to the flat, gray sky. Snowflakes had gathered on his eyelashes. The snow around him was undisturbed, a perfect sheet of white, save for 2 sets of footprints, his and one other. He was found by Alara Jensdottir, Brynjar said, stopping Evelyn a few yards back. She's the base camp manager. Was supposed to be his climbing partner for the new route on the fen. She's not good, detective. Found him at dawn. Evelyn knelt, her gloved fingers brushing the snow. The air was so cold it felt like breathing in powdered glass. There was no blood, not at first glance. Leo was in his full climbing gear, yet not geared for a climb. His harness was on, but there were no ropes. His high-tech, insulated jacket was zipped, his gloves on. He looked posed. He looks. Evelyn searched for the word. Peaceful. He's not, Brynjar grunted. He pointed to Leo's helmet, which was still clipped to his harness, not on his head. And look here. Brynjar indicated a small, almost surgical puncture wound at the base of the skull, just where the spine meets the neck. It was clean, precise. The flesh around it was bruised from the force, but the entry point was no wider than a pencil. No struggle, Evelyn murmured, her mind racing. He knew his killer. He let them get close. He turned his back to them. The girl in the yellow raincoat flashed in her mind. Trust. Betrayal. The coroner's on his way from the city, she said, standing. But I don't need him to tell me this wasn't a fall. This was an execution. No, ma'am. She studied the tracks. One set. Leo's boots. The other, a different boot. A heavier tread. Deeper. The tracks of someone who knew how to walk on snow, placing their feet with intention, conserving energy. The tracks led to Leo, stood there, and then they walked backwards, away from the body, stepping perfectly into their own incoming prints for 50 yards before vanishing onto the hard-packed ice of a frozen stream. A professional, someone who knew the land, someone who knew how to hide, an expert in mountain craft. Evelyn's eyes scanned the body one last time. Leo's right hand, his glove partially off, was clutched tight. Bag his hands, Brynjar. Carefully. He's holding something. Evelyn stood, turning a slow circle. The mountains watched her, vast, silent, and absolute. They ringed the valley like the teeth of a trap. In the city, a killer had a million places to run. Here, there was nowhere. There was only the village or the ice. And only a fool would choose the ice. Who was he with last night? That's the thing, detective, Brynjar said, kicking at a drift. Everyone in this valley is a suspect. Leo was a star, and stars cast long shadows. There's a lot of jealousy here. A lot of pride. You come here, you bring your city rules. Just be careful. These people protect their own. Was that a warning? Evelyn filed it away. Where do we start? Brynjar pointed to a cabin on the ridge, high above the others, smoke rising in a thin, straight line. We start with the man who taught him everything. The man who loved him like a son. Who? Silas Croft, Brynjar said. And for the first time, Evelyn heard something in his voice. Not just respect. Awe. If Leo Vance was the new star, Silas Croft was the living legend. He was the high priest of this ice-bound church. Decades ago, he had put Skardavik on the map, climbing routes no one believed were possible. He was the one who had climbed the fen, in a storm, alone, a feat that was still spoken of in whispers. His cabin was a museum. His word was law. And he was the one who had found Leo Vance, a brash teenager with more courage than sense, and molded him into the ghost. Evelyn found him by his fireplace, staring into the flames. The cabin was warm, smelling of pine smoke, old leather, and metal. Ice axes of different eras lined the walls, their polished steel gleaming. Maps were spread across a massive wooden table. Silas was a man in his late 50s, but he possessed a terrifying stillness. He looked carved from mountain ash, lean and hard. He did not turn when she entered. "Detective Cross," he said. His voice was a baritone, gravelly from decades in the thin air. "You've come a long way to see our little tragedy. Mr. Croft, I'm told you were his mentor." "I was." He finally turned. His eyes were the color of glacial ice, a pale, penetrating blue. They held no warmth, only light. He was arrogant. He was reckless. He was brilliant. All the things a great climber must be. When did you last see him? Yesterday afternoon. Silas gestured to the map table. We were discussing the Fen, the new route. He wanted to call it Silas's Folly. The boy still had a sense of humor. Was it a folly? The route? A small, sad smile touched Silas's lips. All climbing is a folly, detective. It's the one pure, useless, beautiful thing we do. It's the art of suffering, rendered as a vertical line. Leo, he was the finest artist I ever knew. Did he have any enemies? Anyone who would want this? Silas laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Enemies? In this sport, your only rival is yourself. Your only enemy is the mountain. The rest is just noise. Did Kalen Ribbon despise him for his sponsorships? Yes. Was Alara Jensdottir heartbroken by him? Probably. He broke hearts like he broke roots. But to kill him? Silas shook his head, turning back to the fire. No, this wasn't a climber. A climber. A climber would have challenged him on the ice, face to face. This was something else. A coward's work. A shiv in the dark. It's unclean. Evelyn watched him. His grief was palpable. It filled the room, thick as the smoke from the fire. And yet, it felt curated, performed, like a role he had played before. An old grief, brought out for a new occasion. His hand, Mr. Croft. He was clutching something. Did he wear jewelry? A good luck charm? Silas was very still. A log shifted in the fire, sending up a shower of sparks. No, Leo carried nothing. He called it unnecessary weight. He was a purist. Why? We'll know when the lab report comes back, Evelyn said. One more thing. The tracks. The killer walked backwards, retracing their steps. Does that sound like a local to you? Silas looked up, and his ice blue eyes met hers. For a second, the mask of the grieving mentor slipped, and she saw the man who had conquered the Fen. Cold, analytical, dangerous. That, Silas Croft said, sounds like a climber. A very, very good one. The investigation split, as it always does, into two paths, the emotional and the physical. The emotional path led Evelyn to the grizzled ice, the only pub in Skardavik. It was where the climbers gathered to boast, to mourn, and to wait out the storms. The first person she sought was Kalen K. Ribbon. He was the obvious suspect. Young, volatile, and openly jealous of Leo's sponsorship deals. He was nursing a beer in the corner, his face dark, knuckles bruised. So, the city cop, he sneered, not looking up. Come to arrest me? Should I? Evelyn sat opposite him, her presence a cold counter-pressure. Everyone knows I hated him. Good for them. Kay took a long drink. He was a fraud, a selfie stick hero. He took risks, sure, but he wasn't pure. He was all about the brand. The ghost. What a joke. He had a film crew follow him to the latrine. Where were you 2 nights ago? Right here, Kay said, gesturing around the empty pub. Getting drunk. Ask him. He nodded to the bartender, who studiously ignored them both. I was here until 2 a.m. Then I stumbled home. I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. Those bruises on your hand, Evelyn said quietly. Are they from stumbling? Kay's eyes flashed. He curled his hand into a fist. We had a disagreement a week ago. About gear. About ethics. I pushed him. He pushed back. It was nothing. He said my new ice screws were cheap knockoffs. He said it in front of a sponsor. He cost me a $50,000 deal. So yeah, I hit him. He didn't even hit me back. Just smiled. It looks like something. Look, detective. Kay leaned in, his voice low and angry. I damn well didn't kill him. If I was going to kill Leo, I'd have done it on the north face of the Fen and made it look like the mountain did it. Not like that. That was unclean. The same word Silas used. Unclean. It was a climber's word. A code. The second interview was with Alara Jensdottir. Evelyn found her at the basecamp equipment shed, methodically checking carabiners, her movements jerky, robotic. Her hands were red and raw, but they moved with an expert's grace. She was a tall woman, with a long blonde braid, and a face that showed no emotion. But her eyes were shattered. He was beautiful, Alara said, her voice a whisper, not looking at Evelyn. You know that? Not just his face, his movement. Watching him climb. It was like watching a hawk ride a thermal. He was free. You two were involved. It wasn't a question. Alara's hands stilled. A carabiner clattered to the floor. Everyone was involved with Leo. For a week. For a month. Until the next peak, or the next town. I knew what it was. It doesn't mean it didn't. She closed her eyes. I found him. I went to his cabin for our morning check. He wasn't there. His pack was. It was 4 a.m. I knew his routine. I got a bad feeling. I saw the tracks. I followed them. I saw him. Lying there. I touched his face. It was so cold. Did you touch anything else, Alara? Did you move him? No, she said, too quickly. I knelt. I screamed. Then I ran. I ran to Brynjar. Evelyn watched her. She was lying. The denial was too fast, too high-pitched. You ran to Brynjar. But you didn't, did you? Not right away. Brynjar's log says you reported it at 5:03 a.m. But the sun rises here at 4:15. What were you doing for 48 minutes, Alara? Alara went pale, her composure cracking. I don't know. I was in shock. Or you went back to his cabin. Evelyn pressed, her voice soft. You went back, and you took something. Something you didn't want me to find. Alara began to shake. He was leaving me. After the fin, he was done. He had a plane ticket. One way. He didn't tell me. I found it in his wallet. When I found him, she started to sob, a dry, ragged sound. And I found this, on his desk. She reached into her parka and pulled out a small, crumpled piece of paper. It was a receipt from a jeweler in the city. For a ring. An engagement ring. It wasn't for me, Alara whispered. He was leaving me, and he was going to propose to someone else. I took it. I took the receipt. I don't know why. I didn't want her to have that. I didn't want anyone to know. A crime of passion. A plausible motive. But the tracks. The cold, methodical, backward walking tracks. That wasn't Alara. Did you see anything else? Evelyn asked, gentler now. Alara hesitated. She looked over her shoulder, at the silent, watching Pete's. He was worried. The last few days. He was distracted. He wasn't sleeping. He kept digging through old files. He was jumpy. He kept looking over his shoulder. Worried about the climb? No, Alara said, turning to face Evelyn. He was never worried about the climb. He was worried about people. He said he found something. Something. In the old stories. He said, the mountain doesn't keep secrets, Alara. People do. What did he mean? He wouldn't tell me. A tear finally escaped, freezing on her cheek. He said he had to talk to Silas, to clear the air. He said, Silas is the only one who knows the truth. He went to see Silas, the afternoon before. Before I found him, the physical path led Evelyn back to the village. She needed a new perspective. She found it at Hogg's Provisions and History, a shop crammed with climbing gear, books, and dusty artifacts from failed expeditions. The proprietor, Finn Hogg, was a thin man in his 60s, with wire-rimmed glasses and a precise, bird-like way of moving. He was the village's unofficial historian. A detective, Finn said, polishing a vintage compass. We haven't had one of those since the 70s. A tourist fell off the pub roof. Ruled an accident. It wasn't. You don't miss much, Mr. Hogg. In Skardavik, he replied, not looking up. There is nothing to miss. We have scenery, and we have secrets. Leo Vance was interested in both. He was in here, just last week. Not buying gear. He was in the back. In my archives. What was he looking for? Finn gestured. The Annapurna 3 expedition. 20 years ago. The one that made Silas. The one that killed Marcus Thorne. What can you tell me about it? Finn finally looked at her. His eyes were magnified by his glasses, sharp and knowing. I can tell you that 3 men went up. 2 came back. The one who came back a hero, Silas, was the only one with the experience to get all 3 down. The one who came back a prodigy, Leo, was just a boy. And the one who died, Marcus, he was the best of them. The most careful, The strongest. He pulled a bound newspaper from a shelf. The headline, Skardavik's hero. Croft survives Annapurna. Silas's story, Finn said, tapping the page, was perfect. A sudden storm. A broken rope. Marcus, lost in the whiteout. A heroic, desperate, 2-day descent, with Silas practically carrying the boy, Leo. It's a beautiful story. You don't believe it. I believe in physics, detective. Not miracles. The route they took. The speed of their descent. It wasn't a rescue. It was a flight. They didn't come down with heavy packs. They came down with almost nothing. As if they'd left all their gear, and their third man, behind. Deliberately. And Leo Vance was digging into this? With a passion. He'd found something. A journal, I think. He was a man possessed. He told me, I'm going to unfreeze the truth, Finn. A very Leo Vance thing to say. Finn pushed his glasses up. People who try to unfreeze things up here, detective. They often get frozen themselves. Evelyn went to Leo's rented cabin. Brynjar stood at the door, shifting his feet. Not much to see, detective. People always leave something. Constable, Evelyn said, pulling on latex gloves. In a locked dry box, she found it. It wasn't gear. It was a laptop, and a stack of old, leather-bound journals. Not Leo's. The journals were brittle. The ink faded. The pages warped by moisture. The name on the inside cover, Marcus Thorne. And she found a small, velvet pouch. Inside it, a single, old-fashioned, hand-forged piton. A climbing spike. It was heavy and strangely shaped, with a leather-wrapped handle. Evelyn booted the laptop. It was full of research. Scans of old newspaper articles, expedition logs, climbing manifests, all centered on one event, Annapurna 3, 20 years ago, and one audio file. Evelyn put in her earbuds. The file was a recording. Leo's voice, quiet, and another, older voice, Silas Croft. It had been recorded recently, in Silas's cabin. The crackle of his fireplace was unmistakable. Just tell me again. I need to understand. Why? Leo's voice was tense, pleading. The mountain demands a sacrifice, Leo. Silas's voice was slurred, heavy with drink or fatigue. You know this. It demands clarity, a choice. He was alive, Silas. I read the journal. His leg was broken, but he was alive. He was a liability. He was panicking. He was screaming. The storm. It would have killed us all. Me, you, all of us. He was dragging us down. The rope. A rope connects, but it also dooms. You cut him loose. It was a statement, cold and dead. There was a long silence, just the crackle of the fireplace. I unclipped him. Yes, I did. To save us. To save you. You were just a kid. You wouldn't have survived. It was my choice. The leader's choice. Marcus. His time was over. Ours was not. His name was Marcus Thorne. He was Dr. Thorne's son. The village. They think he died a hero. You let them believe that. He is a hero. He gave his life for his team. The how doesn't matter. The legacy. The story. Is what matters, Leo. It's all that matters. It's the story that lets us go on. I can't live with it anymore, Silas. I can't live with your story. I'm publishing it. The journal, this recording. Everything. The world needs to know who you are. You would destroy me? After I made you? You made me a liar. The audio file clicked off. Evelyn sat back, the silence of the cabin roaring in her ears. The Annapurna 3 expedition. 20 years ago. The climb that made Silas Croft a legend. The climb where he and a young, terrified Leo Vance, then just a teenage prodigy, had survived a miraculous descent after a storm, while the third climber, Marcus Thorne, was lost. Silas hadn't just survived, he had murdered. And Leo, his protege, his son, was his witness. Evelyn carefully opened the brittle pages of Marcus Thorne's journal. The last entry was written in a shaky hand. Leg broken. Compound. Can't move. Silas says he'll come back for me. Storm is here. Leo looks terrified. Silas. He looked at me. Not with pity. With calculation. The rope is a lifeline. But it's also a weight. He's checking his watch. He's talking about the weather window. He's not talking about me. He's talking past me. Leo tried to give me his water. Silas knocked it away. Don't waste it, he said. God help me, he's not coming back. Evelyn walked through the village to the small clinic. Dr. Horace Thorne was an old man, his hands twisted with arthritis, but his eyes were sharp and clear. He was the only one in the village who hadn't stared at her like an intruder. Detective, Dr. Thorne, I need to talk to you about your son, Marcus. The old man's face didn't go pale. It hardened, like ice forming on water. He sat, heavily. Marcus, that was a long time ago. He died on Annapurna, with Silas. Silas was a hero, they said. He tried to save him. So the story goes. Drive, Thorne said, his voice barely audible. The story Silas tells, the one Leo Vance confirmed. Did you believe it? The old doctor looked at his twisted hands. A father knows. Marcus was a careful climber, not a reckless one. But Silas needed the summit. He needed the legend. When they came back, only two of them. I knew. I've known for 20 years. But Brynjar, the whole village, they're blinded by him. He is Skardavik. Silas brought you something, Evelyn said. Dr. Thorne's sharp eyes locked on hers. How did you know? He brought you a memento. The doctor opened a drawer and pulled out a small, wooden box. Inside, resting on faded velvet, was a single, hand-forged piton. It was identical to the one in Evelyn's pocket, the one from Leo's cabin. Silas gave this to me, the doctor said. He said it was the last one Marcus placed. His signature. Silas made them himself, you know. Back in the day. His signature. He called them silent spikes. Because the steel was so hard, they went into the ice without a sound. He stopped making them. Said the art was gone. Evelyn felt a cold dread creep up her spine, colder than the air outside. She took out the spike from Leo's cabin. Dr. Thorne recoiled. That's Leo's. He came to me a month ago. He was haunted. He asked me about Marcus, about the expedition. He had found Marcus's journal, recovered by a Sherpa years ago, sold to a collector, and Leo bought it. He was tracking the truth. I told him what I suspected. I told him about Silas. He showed me that spike. He said he found it in Silas's old workshop. He was going to confront him. Evelyn looked from one spike to the other. This piton, doctor, the wound on Leo Vance, at the base of his skull. Could this be the weapon? Dr. Thorne looked at the spike, his eyes full of an old, terrible knowledge. In the hands of an expert, he whispered, it could be driven through a helmet, through a skull, like it was warm butter. It's designed to concentrate an immense force into a single, silent point. It would be instant and silent. A new world hero, killed by an old world tool. And then, the lab report came in, crackling over Brynjar's radio from the city. What was clutched in Leo Vance's hand? Not a piton, not a charm. It was a small, circular piece of dark, worn leather. A custom-made washer, of a type used to provide grip on the handle of an ice axe, or the handle of a silent spike. A piece that had broken off in the struggle. A struggle that wasn't visible, but that had happened. The washer in Leo's hand was a perfect match to the one missing from the piton in Evelyn's pocket. The one from Leo's cabin. The one he took to confront Silas. Evelyn knew. The motive wasn't jealousy. It wasn't money. It was silence. The price of keeping a 20-year-old story buried in the ice. Leo wasn't just going to clear the air. He was going to expose Silas. The journals, the audio file. It was a book, a tell-all. The ghost was going to tell the truth. And the legend, the old lion, could not let that happen. The legacy. It was all that mattered. As if summoned by the truth, the sky turned black. The white veil storm, which the locals had been dreading, hit the valley like a fist. The wind didn't just blow, it screamed. It was a physical, solid thing. A whiteout so total that the world vanished. All transport was grounded. The power died. There would be no plane. No backup. Evelyn was alone. You can't go up there, Cross. Brynjar yelled over the roar, as she buttoned her parka at the station door. It's suicide. He's not going anywhere. He's a killer, not a fool. He's a climber, Brynjar. Evelyn yelled back. This is just weather to him. He's packing. He's leaving. He's going to walk over the pass and vanish. He's done it before. He knows how. You're not. I don't have to climb it. I just have to find him. It's not just Silas you need to worry about. Brynjar grabbed her arm. His face was desperate. Let the mountain have him. It's the mountain's justice. Silas. He saved my life. Pulled me from a crevasse when I was a kid. He's a good man. He's a murderer, Brynjar. He killed Marcus, and he killed Leo. Let go of my arm. Evelyn pulled her arm free. He killed a man in my justice system, Constable. I'm going. Her voice was cold. She would not be too slow again. She walked out of the station and into the white. The walk to Silas's cabin was a battle for every step. The wind stole her breath. The snow was a blinding, suffocating wall. She followed the fence line, navigating by touch, not by sight. She was disoriented in seconds, the world reduced to a roaring, white chaos. The memory of the girl in the yellow raincoat pushed her forward. Not again. Not this time. When she reached the cabin, the door was open, banging on its hinge. He was gone. The fireplace was cold. The cabin was empty. But on the map table, a route was marked in red. It led up, past the ridge, to the high pass that crossed into the next valley. And there, lying on the map, was the other silent spike. The one from Dr. Thorne's box? No, this one was different. There was a dark, frozen stain on its tip. It had been wiped, but not perfectly. And the leather washer on its handle was freshly torn. He had left it for her. A confession. A final, arrogant gesture. She saw movement through the maelstrom. A dark shape, moving with impossible, inhuman speed. He was already on the ridge. Evelyn plunged back into the storm, following him. She was no climber, but she was a hunter. She kept her head down, moving from rock to rock, following the fresh, deep footprints that the storm hadn't yet erased. She was in his world now, and he was toying with her. He was letting her follow. She scrambled up the rock, her lungs on fire, her city boots slipping on the ice. The cold was a living thing, trying to find a way into her. She found him at the edge of the great crevasse, the one the locals called the Silent Whisper. It was a giant, gaping wound in the glacier, hundreds of feet deep, its bottom lost in a blue-black darkness. Silas Croft stood on the edge, his back to the abyss. The storm howled around him, ripping at his parka, but he stood as still as the granite. He was not wearing a pack. He was not fleeing. He was waiting. Detective, he roared over the wind. He was smiling, his face rimmed with ice. A terrible, free smile. It was you, Evelyn shouted, staying 10 yards back, her hand on the radio she knew was useless. You killed them both. They died on the mountain. Silas bellowed, his voice a force of nature. The mountain demanded it. Marcus was weak. He was panicking. He would have killed us. I gave him a warrior's death. And Leo? Was he weak, too? The smile vanished. The grief that flooded his face was real, now. Raw and terrifying. Leo, he whispered, the wind stealing the word. Leo was my son, my legacy. He was my story. And he was going to burn it all down. For what? For truth? He spat the word. There is no truth up here. There is only survival. He came to me. He brought his book, his recordings, his evidence. He said he was setting the story straight. I took him for a walk. To the threshold. To the place I first taught him to tie a knot. Silas raised his hands, looking at them. I asked him to wait. To give me the winter. To think. He looked at me with pity. He said, it's over, Silas. He turned his back to me. To walk away. From me. Silas's eyes met Evelyn's. They were no longer blue. They were the color of the storm. I am a leader. I make the hard choice. The one no one else can make. I did what I had to do. I sent him to the ice. It was a mercy. A clean death. He died a hero. Not a traitor. It's over, Silas, Evelyn said, taking a slow step forward, the wind tearing at her. The story is told. Silas Croft looked at her, then past her, into the white chaos. No, detective, he said, his voice calm now. It's not. The mountain keeps its secrets. And so do I. He turned, not in a lunge, not in a panic, but with a simple, elegant pivot of a climber's foot. He was the ghost, Silas said, his voice almost peaceful. Maybe I'll finally see him. He took one step back, off the lip of the crevasse, and the storm took him. He fell, arms wide, into the blue-black darkness. He didn't make a sound. Evelyn ran to the edge, but he was gone. There was nothing, just the howl of the wind, and the endless, falling snow. The storm broke 2 days later. It left the valley scrubbed clean, buried in a silent, dazzling white. The mountains were pristine, as if nothing had ever happened. Evelyn Cross stood at the airfield, her bag in her hand. The prop plane was warming its engines. The village was quiet. The legend of Silas Croft, murderer, was already being eclipsed by the legend of Silas Croft, the man who chose the mountain over the world. They would never find his body. Or the weapon. Dr. Thorne was there. He pressed a small, leather-bound book into her hand. Marcus's journal. For you, he said. Someone should have the truth. Alara Jensdottir was there, too. Her eyes were still haunted, but she was standing straight. You'll file the report, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, the truth about Leo's death. And Annapurna? Alara asked, her voice quiet. The truth about Dr. Thorne's son? Evelyn looked up at the peaks, the serpent's tooth, the fin. They were just mountains, again, just rock and ice. Their power was in the stories people told about them. Silas was right about one thing, Evelyn said, turning for the plane. The legacy is what matters. The truth is that Marcus Thorne died on that mountain. And now, so has everyone who knew how. She walked up the steps of the plane. Her phone, finally getting a signal, buzzed. A text from her captain. Case closed. Good work. You're coming home. She was no longer in exile. She had faced her own failure, her own need to be careful, and had acted. As the plane lifted off, banking over the valley, Evelyn looked down. Skardavik was just a cluster of dark specks in an ocean of white. The silence rushed back in to fill the space she had left. A silence that was not empty, but full of ambition and memory and pride. The snow was already covering the tracks, but the ice beneath, the ice never forgets.